I work pretty closely with David Dein and Arsene on squad development, which is an important aspect, I think, of what a managing director should do. And I think too few directors actually get involved in that, and we strategically built the squads.
So who did you sign? Who are you involved with?
Well, I some of the players, not a lot, because David used to do that. But in terms of what we needed, and in terms of the squad format and formation, David, Arsene, and myself used to discuss that around about January, February every time, and we used to actually execute on that.
Yeah, so what was your involvement in that? Because from what we understand as fans, Arsene Wenger would identify who he wanted, and David Dein would go out and do the deal. What was your involvement with these transfers?
One of the things,
and was it also not only bringing players in, but sort of shipping players out?
David's a great deal maker. So I think, and that's one of the things that when David went, I think that held the club back for many years, because nobody could do the deals that David did. So David was very, very good deal maker. But actually the thinking about what we needed in the squad, I mean, I'm not a football guru, but I listened to how Arsene wanted to build his team and put that into a strategic framework, and made David and Arsene work to that strategic framework. So Arsene would say, I think I want this player, but I said, hold on, Arsene, you said that this is how you're going to build the squad, and we've got gaps here, and that's more important than what you might want. And so I think that what you've seen over Arsenal over the years is that they've had, they've bought 5 midfield players, and not had a centre back. And it's all that kind of logic flow that you've got to go through. And also Arsene was, he was a great manager, and he was very good at spotting talent. But he wasn't very good on valuations. I mean, I remember one player he wanted, and he said, well, I said to him, how much do you want to bid? He said 8 million. I said, but they bid 10 for him. Someone else bid 10 last season, didn't get him. So you're going to have to bid more than 10. So he said, well, it's not worth more than 8. And I said, but do you want him, Arsene? And he said, yes. I said, David, bid 12 then and go and get him. And we got him. And that was Wiltord. And Wiltord scored the winning goal for the Invincibles at Old Trafford. And, that is worth the extra 2 million. So I think it was a team effort. I was probably very important in the strategic bit, but not so important on the execution bit.
Yeah, it was actually for the double. It wasn't the Invincibles.
Yeah, sorry.
But sorry, pull you up on that. That's one of my little things.
Sorry.
Talking of the Invincibles, though, that's obviously an incredible feat that no team has been able to achieve. Yeah. And I don't know if a team.
I think the amazing thing about the Invincibles is that when we were going through the season, it kind of didn't dawn on us till about the last 10 games that we'd gone unbeaten. So, oh my God, we've gone unbeaten, and then the stress levels really got high, because you didn't want to get beaten. And you wanted to end up being invincible, and we did it.
Was that a good amazing. So that achievement quite a good commercial draw as well for brands to kind of join?
I think we were the. I mean, the ratios always were, and it's easier to do these fan surveys overseas, because overseas is where you pick up more new fans, and people come to the Premier League. So the ratio always was that Manchester United was 8, Liverpool was 4, and we were 2. And we were going up towards close to 4, so we were getting to 50% or 60% of where Manchester United were. So we were really growing our brand worldwide, and we had lots of efforts to grow our brand worldwide. We did joint ventures in Thailand and Vietnam and a lot of other parts of Asia.
And were there any deals that were presented to you because of the opportunities that were coming up that you rejected?
Oh yeah, there are lots of deals we rejected. Lots of transactions.
Was there any kind of weird and wonderful ones that just got kicked into touch and you didn't share with us?
I mean, and we were always looking to develop players as well in some of these jurisdictions. So we had a very good development person who worked out in the Far East and set up training camps in the Far East, having worked in Africa and brought the Ivory Coast team, and they were I think he brought 11 players through from 12 or 14 right up, and 6 or 8 of those, including the Kolo brothers, were Premier League players. So an amazingly talented man.
What was the academy set up like then?
Well, the academy was good. I mean, we had lots of good young players, and there was a big move because especially during these years when we were winning things and we were playing really well, Arsene would never put the young players on the pitch. And so, I was asked to go and have a chat with Arsene to see if we could get him to play a few more young players, because everyone was getting upset with the young players. And I went to see Arsene, I'll never forget the conversation. I said, Arsene, couldn't you just put a young player on for 10 minutes? And he turned around to me and says, young players make mistakes. If they make a mistake and we get a goal, we might be 2-0 up when I put him on. We'll go 2-1 and then we're under pressure. So I'm not prepared to do it. I said, completely understand, Arsene, and walked out and told the board that we weren't putting young players
And
on.
who asked you to have that conversation?
Oh, that was the board that kind of said, if we have a conversation with and Liam Brady, who ran the youth team. So we had the conversation. I completely agreed with him. We never did that.
Okay, but the board attempted to put him under pressure
Not
to
really,
change
no,
the team,
just
or
have
just a suggestion?
It was a suggestion, more of a suggestion. He didn't tell Arsene what to
And
do.
was he upset by that? Or
No. Arsene was a really great guy. He was always prepared to have discussions and debates. And we had lots of discussions and debates about, well, why don't you play this player here? Well, I can't because of this, and this. So he was very analytical about it. But I think his demise I thought was quite sad, because effectively what happened after David left and I left is that no one worked with him, so he had to do everything himself, and he was what I call a brilliant micromanager of running a team. He wasn't a very strategic guy, and he was so immersed in the detail of running the team that he couldn't get up to do transfers and all that stuff and do his job and run the team during the season. So that's why I think it fell apart.
So looking at the structure of the club now, so obviously the Kroenkes are full ownership, and then there's Edu, technical director, helping with like transfers and stuff, and Mikel Arteta is somewhat of a take in that, it seems, and then there's Vinay as well, I think, kind of like CEO. Does that structure work for the club now?
I mean, most clubs have gone for technical directors now, and I think if you get the right technical director, it can be a good format. I'm probably a bit old-fashioned and like to see a manager who wants to bring a squad in. It depends how those work as a team, and so it depends again whether they're working as a team, and who in the responsibility of making them work as a team goes in different places. I mean, I worked with some of the best CEOs in my time. Probably Martin Edwards at Manchester United was the best, and I never forget him when he left. Said to me, "Oh, Manchester United won't have a few good years now," and that's when we were resurgent, because he said, they've just bought another midfield player when they should have bought someone in the centre back. I don't understand it. And that was because the manager wanted it. So this is all a part about how you manage the club, and that's why I think management is underestimated in football. But the way you manage those players doing that is quite important. And we had a coach, we had a scout who was, I would say, not very good. And I mean, he ended up as a director of football. I won't name him at a club, and you thought to yourself, he went from 50,000 to $250,000 as a director of football. You thought, this is nuts, because this guy's not very good. And he worked for us. And so, I think there are some examples of that go along where people, ex-footballers, who come along and people say, oh, he can be director of football, pay him a lot of money. And of course, there's a lot of money swirling around in clubs. And I think some of them aren't as good as they should be. But that's the job, I think, of the CEO to oversee that and be responsible for it. And I think that one of the issues at Arsenal after we left is the CEO seemed to abdicate all that and say, well, that all happens down at London Colney. I sit up here in an ivory tower. And I think that that's not the way to run a good football club.
Yeah. I appreciate that you won't name the individual, but would you name the club?
No.
Should we just,
isn't he?
Yeah, should we just say it's Tottenham?
You can say what you want.
Say what you want. Okay. So also, I just want to kind of ask you, so the Kroenkes are full owners of the club.
Yeah.
Is that in your opinion, the best way for it to be? Because I think at the time they had maybe a 12% stake or something in the club, or 60 or something.
I mean, we had a deal with Kroenke's MSL club, and actually when I went over to the States, because they opened their new stadium, that was when the Kroenke deal first came to fruition, and no one knew about it until then. And it was the Granada stake that we sold to them, the 10% that went to Kroenke. And it all got very, very difficult at that time because there was a lot of politics going on the board of Arsenal, which were not particularly great news. And, it made it a quite difficult situation. I've met Stan a number of times. I think he owns it as a financial owner, not as a lover of the club. And I think that's a shame. It's my personal view. I think it's great when people. I mean, if you look at Abramovich, he really loves Chelsea, and I think you're much better to have an owner who loves the club and hurts if they lose and if they're not doing well, rather than someone who's a financial owner of a club who owns it as an asset.
There's been talk recently of Daniel Ek, who founder, CEO of Spotify, and bringing some of the legends in, like I think Henry and Bergkamp and Vieira, these kind of people in. Was that just a PR stunt, do you think, or do you reckon there's something in that?
I don't know, because I'm not in the flow of that, but I would think Stan's quite a long-term holder of this asset, because he believes, and I spoke to him, he owns clubs, he owns NFL clubs in the States. Yeah, and
they've opened an incredible new stadium as well.
And of course, the great thing about football, which is not the same for NFL, as it's a global market. So I think they see that the value of these clubs is going to continue to rise throughout the next 10, 15 years. So as an asset, he holds it. His son was always interested in football. He played football. Stan's not really interested in football.
Was he any good? Are we going to see him up front anytime soon?
No. So I think that, I think you've got someone who's a financial owner of the club, who owns it as a financial asset.
Okay. And also, so if you were, still in your role now at the club, where would you, what direction would you try and take it? As I said, the structure's kind of changed since you were there, but is there anything particular you think, Arsenal should sign this player, or Arteta needs more control, less control?
I think the two most important things are that you've got to set a strategy for how you're going to recover. Okay. Because you said to me, I think earlier, Julian, that we're doing quite well. And I said, I disagree. 10th is just ridiculous. Exactly. For a club of Arsenal's size. And I'll never forget Martin Edwards from Manchester United. And this is a different kind of view. But when we'd kind of come second to Manchester United, remember we came second quite a few seasons. He said to me, if Arsene doesn't win, you should fire him and get someone who can win the league for you. And that that kind of took me back a bit, because Arsene was revered then. And I suddenly thought, that's absolutely right. You've got to have a group of people who can actually win the league, and you've got to believe that they can win the league.
That's the aim at the end of the day, isn't it?
It should be the aim to win the league, and to win European competitions. So I think that in my view, the most important thing is for someone to run the club and actually take responsibility to make that happen. And it shouldn't be, who is responsible here? And I think that greyness causes a problem. And I think that for Arsenal, it should be focusing on deciding what your strategy is. So, can you do it in 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years? But what is that time scale, and what is the journey you're going to go on, and what are the things you're going to put in place, and where are you going to make those investments?